The rain came down hard that Tuesday evening, slamming against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Lucas Hayes's office like it was trying to bust its way in. Chicago was drowning in one of those sudden summer storms, thunder rumbling low over Lake Michigan, streets turning into rivers, the kind of weather that made you question why anyone bothered living here. Inside the 40th floor headquarters of Peak Pulse, the air smelled like stale coffee and printer ink, a sterile hum cutting through the storm's chaos. The lights flickered every so often, casting jittery shadows over the sleek glass desk where Lucas sat, his lanky frame slumped in a leather chair that probably cost more than most people's rent. At 35, Lucas was the guy you'd clock as a tech bro who'd hit the jackpot. Dark brown hair sticking out from an old Blackhawks cap, sharp blue eyes dulled by too many late nights, and a 5 o'clock shadow that said he hadn't seen a razor in days. He'd built Peak Pulse from a basement project in Evanston into an AI empire worth billions, the kind of success that landed him on Forbes' 30 Under 30 list back when he could still count the gray hairs. They called him Chicago's Tech King, a title he secretly hated. Right now, though, he wasn't a king. He was just Lucas, a guy staring at a soggy takeout box of deep dish pizza, wondering how the hell his life had gotten so empty. He poked at the pizza with a plastic fork, the crust soggy from sitting too long. His penthouse in the Loop, a glass box with a killer view of the skyline, was waiting for him a few blocks away, all smart lights and a fridge that texted him when it was low on beer. Up there he had everything money could buy. A garage full of supercars he barely drove, a closet of designer suits he never wore, a bank account so fat it made his accountant sweat. Down here, though, in this storm-lit office, he had nothing but time to think about how none of it mattered. The city glowed every night, a postcard view he'd spent years chasing. But who was he kidding? There was no one to share it with. His assistant scheduled friend dinners like they were investor pitches, and every handshake came with a hidden agenda. Success had handed him the world, but it had locked him up tight in a tower of his own making. Lucas sighed, rubbing the back of his neck where a tension headache was brewing. He'd almost canceled tonight's investor meeting, some startup pitching healthcare tech in the middle of a damn monsoon. "Who's crazy enough to show up in this?" he muttered, glancing at the clock, 7:58 p.m. The pizza was cold. His inbox was a war zone. Texts from his CFO Trey about stock dips, PR freaking out over a glitch in their latest AI rollout, and he was 2 seconds from calling it a night. Then the door swung open, and everything changed. She walked in like she owned the place, dripping wet from head to toe, a laptop bag slung over her shoulder. Zara Kamau was 29, not tall, maybe 5'4", but she carried herself with a quiet fire that filled the room. Her long dark curls were plastered to her face, rain streaking down her white blazer, which was now more gray than anything. Her Converse sneakers squeaked on the hardwood, leaving little puddles behind, but she didn't flinch. No umbrella, no apologies, just a quick shake of her head to flick water off, and then those deep brown eyes locked on him. Lucas froze, pizza halfway to his mouth, caught off guard by how she didn't rush to fix herself up or stammer excuses about the weather. Instead, she dropped her bag on the table, pulled out her laptop, and said, "Mr. Hayes, I'm here to show you how we're going to fix healthcare for people who've been left behind." Her voice was warm but sharp, like she'd rehearsed this 100 times and wasn't about to waste a second. Lucas blinked, setting the pizza down, suddenly hyper-aware of the grease on his fingers. You're soaked," he said, fumbling for something normal to say. "Sure you don't want to dry off first?" Zara smirked, popping open her laptop. "No time. People are waiting on this, and I'm not here to waste yours." She tapped a key, and the screen lit up with a logo. CareLink, clean and simple. Lucas leaned forward, curiosity tugging at him despite the exhaustion. Most pitches he sat through were slick PowerPoints full of buzzwords: disruption, scalability, ROI, delivered by nervous MBAs in overpriced suits. This was different. Zara didn't fidget or glance at notes. She stood there, rain still dripping from her braids, and started talking. CareLink's a platform to get health care into underserved neighborhoods, like Englewood, where I grew up, she said, clicking through slides of data and mock-ups. Real-time access to clinics, telemedicine for folks who can't get downtown, AI that flags emergencies before they're emergencies. Not I hope or maybe. This is happening, and it's gonna save lives. Her hands moved with purpose, pointing out stats. 40% of Englewood lacked basic care. 15-minute ambulance delays. But it was her eyes that got him. They lit up every time she said, people. Like this wasn't just a business. It was a mission carved into her bones. Lucas forgot about the pizza, the storm, the inbox blowing up on his phone. He'd sat through hundreds of pitches, drones, crypto, whatever. But this hit different. His VP tried cutting in with some smug question about profit margins. How do you monetize charity? And Zara shut it down without missing a beat. You don't monetize it, you sustain it. Impact first, revenue follows. People aren't numbers, they're the point. Lucas hid a grin behind his hand. Here was someone who didn't give a damn about his billions or his corner office. She saw him as a guy with resources, sure, but not a god to impress. Zara paused, slinging her bag over her shoulder. Good. 'Cause they're not me. She flashed a half smile, those eyes catching the light just right, and walked out, leaving wet footprints and a buzzing in his chest he couldn't shake. Lucas watched her go, the door clicking shut, and sank back into his chair. The pizza sat there, cold and forgotten, but he didn't care. Something had shifted, like a crack in the walls he'd built around himself, letting a sliver of light sneak through. Outside, the storm raged on, lightning splitting the sky over Chicago. Up here, his phone was probably a mess. Trey nagging, PR panicking, the usual. Down there, Zara Kamal was heading back into the rain, unbothered, unstoppable. Lucas didn't know it yet, but that soggy, stubborn woman with a laptop and a purpose was about to turn his whole damn world upside down. Sometimes, the moments that rewrite your life don't come with fanfare. They come with wet sneakers and a pitch that hits you square in the soul. This was just the start. Hey, if you've ever met someone who flipped your world in a heartbeat, smash that subscribe button so you don't miss what's next. Think Lucas is falling already? Drop your guess in the comments. I'm dying to hear. The rain had finally let up by the end of July, leaving Atlanta sticky and humid, the kind of heat that made your shirt cling like a second skin. Owen Brooks had spent the last 2 weeks replaying that stormy meeting with Kaya Mwangi in his head. Her dripping blazer, that unshakable confidence, the way her eyes lit up talking about CareLink. Back at his penthouse in Midtown, the city skyline glittered through the glass walls every night, but it felt different now, less like a trophy, more like a cage. His phone buzzed non-stop. Trey nagging about quarterly reports, PR hounding him to approve some bullshit press release, but Owen barely glanced at it. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about stock tickers or boardroom battles. He was thinking about her. He texted her a few days after the pitch, keeping it casual. Hey, love the CareLink idea. Coffee sometime to talk more? She'd shot back. Sure, but not some overpriced Buckhead spot. Meet me at Roots and Beans, West End, 2 p.m. Thursday. Owen grinned at his phone like an idiot, ignoring Trey's latest text. Dude, don't mix feelings with funds. Trust me. Trey Reed, his CFO and best friend since their broke-ass college days at Georgia Tech, was a human calculator. Wiry, sharp, always in a tailored vest like he was auditioning for Wall Street. He'd been the one crunching numbers when Peak Pulse was just a dream in Owen's basement. Now he was the guy who'd slap sense into Owen when he got too reckless. But this wasn't reckless. This was something else. Roots and Beans sat on a quiet corner in West End, a low brick building with chipped paint and a neon sign flickering in the window. Inside, the air smelled like roasted coffee beans and cinnamon, a slow jazz tune humming from an old speaker behind the counter. The place was small, wooden tables scratched up from years of use, a couple of mismatched chairs, a chalkboard menu smudged with specials. It wasn't the sleek rooftop bars Owen usually hit up, where waiters knew his name and drinks cost more than a car payment. This felt real, lived in, like stepping into someone's living room. He tugged at his faded hoodie, Blackhawks logo peeling off, and slid into a seat by the window, feeling out of place but weirdly okay with it. Kaya showed up right on time, her curls pulled into a messy bun, a sleeveless denim top showing off arms toned from who knows what. She carried that little notebook she always had, tucking it into her back pocket as she waved at the barista, a big guy with a gray beard who hollered, "Hey, Kaya, usual." She nodded, grinning, then dropped into the chair across from Owen. "Hope you like soul with your coffee," she said, her voice teasing but warm. "This ain't your penthouse vibe." Owen chuckled, leaning back. "I can roll with it. Beats stale boardroom brew." He watched her order in a quick burst of Swahili, something about extra cream, and the barista laughed like they'd known each other forever. Owen's phone buzzed again. Trey, probably, but he flipped it face down, eyes on her. "So, CareLink, tell me more. Off the record, no pitch bullshit." She raised an eyebrow, smirking. "You sure? Thought you tech bros lived for the pitch." But she leaned in anyway, elbows on the table, and started talking. "Grew up a few blocks from here. West End's rough, you know that. Mom and Dad came from Kenya with nothing but teaching degrees and big dreams. Worked their asses off so me and my brother could eat. But healthcare? Forget it. Nearest clinic was a bus ride away, and half the time it was packed or shut down. CareLink's my way of fixing that. Tech that brings the help to them, not the other way around." Owen nodded, sipping the coffee she'd pushed his way. Strong, sweet, better than anything he'd had in Buckhead. "Sounds personal," he said, quieter now. "You're not just in it for the startup clout." Kaya's eyes softened, but she didn't back down. "Damn right it's personal. Watched my grandma die waiting on an ambulance that never showed. This isn't clout. It's a promise." She tapped her fingers on the table, a quick little rhythm, and Owen felt something twist in his chest. "So what's your deal now? You're loaded. Why keep grinding?" Owen shrugged, picking at the edge of his cup. "Dunno. Habit, maybe. Proving I'm not a fluke. But it's lonely as hell up there." He nodded toward the window, meaning the penthouse, the skyline, all of it. He hadn't meant to say that. Too raw, too real, but her steady gaze pulled it out of him. She didn't flinch, just nodded like she got it. "Yeah, well, lonely's a choice. You're here now, right?" The barista dropped off a plate of warm cornbread, and she slid it his way. "Try this. Beats your fancy pizza." He laughed, breaking off a piece, crumbly, buttery, damn near perfect. "Okay, you win. This is better than Lou Malnati's, and that's saying something." They ate, trading stories, her about sneaking into computer labs at Spelman, him about hacking school servers just to mess with the football team's schedule. It wasn't business anymore. It was easy, like they'd known each other longer than 2 weeks. That's when the high hit, a moment he'd replay for years. Kaya grabbed his arm after coffee, dragging him out into the sticky afternoon. "Come on, I've got something to show you." She led him 2 blocks over to a community center parking lot, where a health fair was in full swing. Tents flapping in the breeze, kids darting around with popsicles, a line of folks waiting for free checkups. The air smelled like sunscreen and antiseptic, a megaphone crackling with announcements. Kaya dove right in, crouching by an old man in a faded falcon's cap, showing him her phone. "See, Mr. Earl, this app will ping the clinic if your blood pressure spikes. No more waiting till you're half dead. The guy chuckled, raspy and warm. You trying to keep me around, huh, Kaya? She grinned, patting his shoulder, and Owen just stood there, watching her work the crowd, explaining CareLink to a mom with a squirming toddler, joking with a nurse about the heat. He stepped closer, hands in his pockets, and muttered, You're not just good. You're unreal. Kaya glanced up, wiping sweat off her forehead. And you're not as stuck up as I thought. Her laugh rang out, bright and unscripted, bouncing off the concrete, and Owen's heart did a dumb little flip. This wasn't just coffee anymore. This was something. Back at peak pulse, his phone was a war zone. Jasper texting, Where you at, man? Board's pissed about the AI glitch. Down here, though, none of that mattered. Kaya's friend Nia, a wiry chick with green hair and a sharp grin, sidled up, eyeing him. You the rich guy, huh? Don't screw her over. She's too good for that. Owen nodded, caught off guard, but he got it. People like Kaya didn't come around every day. He left the fair with cornbread crumbs on his hoodie and a buzz he couldn't name. Upstairs, his empire was waiting. Numbers, meetings, noise. Down here, he'd found a spark he didn't know he'd lost. But sparks can catch fire or burn out. And this one was just getting started. Ever find someone who makes you feel alive again? Hit that subscribe button to see where this spark takes Owen and Kaya. Where's the best spot you've grabbed coffee with someone special? Drop it in the comments. I want to know. The August heat was brutal in Atlanta, the kind that turned asphalt into a skillet and made the air feel like a wet blanket. Owen Brooks had been riding a high since that day at the West End Health Fair. Kaya Mwangi's laugh still echoing in his head, the taste of cornbread lingering like a promise. Up in his midtown penthouse, the AC hummed non-stop, but he barely noticed. He'd been dodging the usual grind. Board meetings, investor calls, Trey's endless texts about focus, bro, focus, to sneak more time with Kaya. Coffee at Roots and Beans turned into late-night texts, then a couple of strategy sessions that ended with them laughing over burnt ugali she'd tried cooking in her tiny West End kitchen. For once, Owen wasn't counting minutes or dollars. He was just there. Roots and Beans had become his escape hatch. The chipped tables, the jazz humming low, the way Kaya's voice softened when she talked about her patients. It was a world away from the glass and steel fortress of peak pulse. She didn't know the full scope of who he was. Not yet. To her, he was just Owen, the guy who'd crashed into her pitch soaked in rain, who hated fancy coffee but loved her cornbread. And damn, if that didn't feel like a lifeline. He'd kept his phone off most days, tucked away in a drawer back at the office, where it couldn't drag him back to the real world. Up there, every handshake came with a price tag. Down here, time stretched slow and sweet, like honey on a hot day. But lifelines fray, and trouble was brewing. It started with Jasper Reed, Owen's CFO, and the only guy who could call him out without blinking. Jasper had been on edge since the AI glitch tanked Peak Pulse's stock 4%. A wiry ball of stress in a three-piece vest, pacing the office like a caged panther. He'd been blowing up Owen's phone for weeks. Where you at, man? PR's losing it over the glitch. You playing hooky with that startup chick? Jasper was a live wire, all fast talk and zero chill, the kind of friend who'd built Peak Pulse's first server with Owen over cheap beer and pizza in a Decatur garage. He didn't get Kaya, not yet. She's cool, sure, he'd texted last night. But don't tank the company for a crush, dude. This ain't a rom-com. Owen ignored it, like he'd ignored everything else. How do you explain that a woman with a beat-up notebook and a mission meant more than $1 billion empire? Jasper wouldn't buy it. He'd laugh, slap Owen's back and say, "Good for you, but keep your head in the game." Meanwhile, Kaya's world kept spinning as usual. She'd roll into Roots and Beans after shifts, scrubs wrinkled from running around clinics, that messy bun of hers barely holding together. Owen loved watching her. How she'd tap her fingers on the table when she got fired up. How she'd tease him about his tech bro lingo. One day, she told him about an old patient, Mr. Reggie, a retired mechanic who'd flirt shamelessly and beg for extra jello. "He's a riot," she said, grinning over a pile of fries. "Keeps saying I owe him a dance. Like I've got time for that." Owen laughed, swiping a fry. "Sounds like my kind of dude. You ever give in?" "Nope," she said, snagging one back. "But I slipped him a Snickers once. Don't snitch to the head nurse." She winked, and Owen's chest did that stupid flip again. He was in deep, and he knew it. But the clock was ticking on his little secret. The first crack showed up at a Tuesday lunch. Owen was at their usual table at Roots and Beans, sipping coffee that tasted like burnt toast, when Kaya's friend Nia Carter strolled over. Nia was all edges, short green hair, a leather jacket despite the heat, and a grin that said she didn't trust easy. She'd been eyeballing Owen since the fair, her vibe screaming prove you're worth her time. "Hey, Kaya's mystery man," she said, leaning on the table with a smirk. "You're around a lot for a guy who's just interested in the startup. What's your deal? Some rich kid slumming it down here?" Owen froze, cup halfway to his mouth. Just vibing," he said, forcing a grin. "Docs say I need to chill more. Stress and all." Nia snorted, popping a piece of gum. "Right. Well, you're too chill. Nobody's that chill without something up their sleeve." She gave him a look, half warning, half challenge, then sauntered off to the counter. Owen exhaled, pulse thudding. Close call. He should have known close calls don't last. That night, back at his penthouse, Owen finally checked his phone. Big mistake. 72 unread texts, 15 missed calls, and a voicemail from Jasper that started with, "Man, I fucked up." Owen's stomach dropped as he hit play. Jasper had been out for drinks with his girlfriend, a loudmouth bartender named Lexi who loved a good scoop. He'd let slip that Owen was hanging out in West End with some startup girl, thinking it'd stay quiet. Lexi's cousin worked at the Atlanta Scoop, and by midnight the headline dropped. Tech Titan Owen Brooks cozies up with mystery woman. Grainy photos followed. Owen and Kaya laughing over fries, her handing him coffee, him staring at her like she'd invented sunlight. The caption twisted his gut. Billionaire's secret fling, or strategic move. His phone went nuclear. PR team, investors, even his mom texting, "Owen, who's this girl? Call me." He bolted upright, heart hammering, yanking on his hoodie. He had to tell Kaya before she saw it, but he was too late. The next day, Roots and Beans was buzzing when he got there, folks whispering, baristas sneaking glances at their phones. Owen slid into their corner spot, palms sweaty, rehearsing lines. "Kaya, I should have told you, I'm not just some dude." Then the door banged open, and there she was. Kaya stormed in, scrubs damp from the drizzle outside, her face a mix of rage and hurt. Her phone glowed in her hand, that damn Scoop article glaring back. She stopped dead in front of him, voice shaking. "Owen Brooks? The Owen Brooks? Tech Rise guy? You've been lying to my face this whole damn time?" Owen's mouth went dry. "Kaya, He stood, chair screeching back. "I didn't lie, I just didn't tell you everything." "That's the same freaking thing," she snapped, loud enough to hush the room. Her fingers tapped a frantic beat on her phone, her stress signal. What was this? A game? See how long you could play regular Joe with the broke-ass nurse? "No!" Owen's voice cracked, desperation spilling out. "Kaya, you're the realest thing I've got. I just wanted you to see me. Not the money, not the company." She cut him off, shoving the phone at him. "Well, congrats, 'cause now everybody sees you. And me." My patients are asking if I'm banging the tech guy. My inbox is full of reporters. You happy now? Her voice broke, and Owen felt it like a kick to the ribs. She tossed the coffee she'd brought, black, no sugar, his usual, onto the table, the lid popping off and splashing everywhere, then turned to go. "Kaya, wait!" he yelled, but she was already halfway out, sneakers leaving wet streaks on the floor. The coffee pooled on the table, a bitter mess, and Owen sank back down, head in his hands. Naya watched from the counter, arms crossed, her told-you-so glare cutting deep. Outside, the drizzle picked up, drumming the windows like it was laughing at him. Upstairs at peak pulse, Jasper was probably scrambling, PR spinning damage control. Down here, Owen didn't give a damn about any of it. He'd built something fragile and perfect with Kaya, and now it was cracking. Could he fix it? Or had he just torched the one thing that felt like home? The fallout from the Atlanta scoop hit Owen Brooks like a freight train. Up at Peak Pulse's shiny HQ in Buckhead, the chaos was deafening. Phones ringing off the hook. PR team huddled in a glass-walled war room, Jasper Reed pacing like he'd downed 6 espressos. "Dude, I'm so sorry." He'd texted Owen a dozen times, followed by, "Lexi feels like crap. It was a slip-up." Slip-up or not, the damage was done. The stock dipped another 2% overnight, investors were twitchy, and the internet was eating it up. Memes of Owen in a hoodie holding coffee with captions like, "Billionaire's brew, love, or PR stunt." It'd be funny if it didn't feel like his world was crumbling. Down in West End, though, the wreckage was quieter and way more personal. Owen hadn't seen Kaya in 3 days. She'd ghosted Roots and Beans, their corner table empty except for the occasional kid spilling juice on it. He'd hung around anyway, picking at fries that tasted like sawdust without her swiping half, hoping she'd walk through that creaky door. She didn't. Nia had swung by once, tossing him a glare that could melt steel. "She's on nights now. Probably dodging your ass," she'd said, then left without another word. Owen couldn't blame Kaya. That look on her face when she'd stormed out. The hurt slicing through her anger kept him up nights, staring at the Midtown skyline like it'd give him answers. He was cleared to ditch the stress watch routine that week. Doc said he was fine, just overworked, but he didn't head back to the penthouse. Not yet. The view of the city felt like a slap now, all glitz and no soul, a reminder of everything he'd chased that left him hollow. Instead, he crashed at Jasper's loft in Old Fourth Ward, sprawled on a couch that reeked of weed and last week's takeout. Jasper tried to lighten the mood one night, tossing him a beer. "Look, man, she's mad, but she'll chill. Girls love a big gesture. Code her an app or something." Owen popped the can, the bitter fizz hitting his throat. "Not her. She doesn't give a damn about apps or cash. That's the point." He took a swig, the ache in his chest sharpening. "I screwed up, Jazz. She saw me. Really saw me. And I still hid half my life." Jasper flopped into an armchair, running a hand through his silver-streaked hair. "Yeah, well, you're Owen freaking Brooks. Hiding's your thing. But maybe it's time to ditch the Clark Kent act, you know?" Owen didn't answer, just stared at the can, Jasper's words sinking in. He'd spent years ducking the spotlight, terrified of being a walking ATM instead of a person. With Kaya, he'd gone too far the other way, and now she was gone. He had to fix it, not with money or tech, but with the truth. All of it. That's how he ended up in West End on a muggy Thursday night, standing outside Kaya's place in a downpour that soaked him to the bone. It was a little shotgun house off Abernathy Boulevard, peeling yellow paint, a sagging porch with a single light flickering like it was on its last legs. The street was quiet, except for the rain slapping cracked pavement and the faint thump of a bass line from a neighbor's TV. Owen's hoodie was a lost cause, water dripping off the brim as he clutched a soggy bag from Roots and Beans, 2 coffees, black, no sugar, her favorite. He dug up her address from an old CareLink email. Creepy, yeah, but desperation didn't care about manners. He took a shaky breath, the damp air biting his lungs, and knocked. The door creaked open a minute later, revealing a woman who had to be Kaya's mom. Mrs. Esther Mwangi was short and solid, her graying braids pulled tight, her dark eyes narrowing at the drenched stranger on her porch. She wore a faded apron with flour smudges, and her voice carried a soft Georgia lilt with a hint of Kenya. "Who you think you are, banging on my door this late? We don't want no salesman." Owen's hands shook, not from the cold. I'm Owen Brooks. I'm here for Kaya. Is she—" Esther's face turned to stone. "You're that Owen? The rich boy who turned my baby's life into a sideshow?" She stepped forward, blocking the doorway like a linebacker. "Reporter's been calling my phone non-stop. Kaya's out there busting her tail, and you're the reason. Give me one good reason I don't slam this right in your face." Before Owen could choke out an answer, a younger voice cut in. "Mama, relax. Is that him?" A girl bounced into view, early 20s, Kaya's curls, but with a brighter, TikTok-ready vibe. She grinned, shoving past Esther. "Oh, snap. You're the tech dude. I'm Tasha, Kaya's sister." "Man, you're loaded. Gonna Venmo me for my nails or what?" "Tasha, hush," Esther snapped, but a tiny smirk twitched her lips. Owen held up the coffee bag like a white flag. "I just want to talk to her. Please." Brought her favorite. Black, no sugar. Esther eyed the bag, then him, her glare softening a hair. "She ain't here. Night shift. But you better not be wasting my time, boy." She stepped aside, grudgingly waving him in. The living room was tight and warm, mismatched furniture, a crocheted blanket on the couch, the smell of cornbread wafting from somewhere. Tasha flopped onto the sofa, scrolling her phone, while Esther stood with arms crossed, watching Owen like he might steal the silverware. "Kaya's pissed as hell," Esther said, voice low. "And I don't trust men like you. Big promises, bigger letdowns. Her daddy got burned by folks like that back in Nairobi. She don't need it again." "I'm not that guy," Owen said, meeting her eyes. "I messed up, yeah, but I'm not playing games. I care about her, more than anything." Esther didn't blink, but something flickered in her gaze. Testing him, maybe. Before she could reply, Tasha piped up. "She said you're cute but a liar. She's at the clinic till midnight. You groveling or what?" Owen nodded, rain dripping onto the rug. "Yeah, I'm groveling." He didn't wait till midnight. An hour later, he was outside the West End Community Clinic, parked under a busted streetlight, rain hammering his hoodie like it wanted payback. His sneakers squelched with every step, the coffee bag a soggy wreck. But he didn't care. When Kaya's shift ended, she'd come this way. He'd rehearsed a dozen apologies, but when she finally stepped out, scrubs clinging to her from the wet night, curls plastered to her face, it all flew out the window. She stopped short, spotting him, her face a storm of exhaustion and wariness. "Owen, what the hell? I'm scared," he blurted, cutting her off, voice raw. "Scared of being just a bank account to people. Every friend I've had since Peak Pulse blew up, they've wanted something. Laughs before I'm funny, favors before they know me. Then you came in and you didn't care about any of it. You saw me. And I was so damn terrified of losing that, I hid the rest." He stepped closer, rain streaking his face. "I'm soaked. I'm a mess. And I'm here 'cause losing you scares me more than anything." Kaya's fingers tapped her thigh, fast and frantic, her eyes locked on his. "You don't get it," she said, voice trembling. "The lie cut deeper than the money ever could. My phone's a war zone, reporters, co-workers, mamas freaking out. I'm not built for your world, Owen." Then I'll come to yours, he said, firm despite the shake in his hands. I'll fix this, whatever it takes, just don't shut me out yet. She didn't say yes, didn't say no. After a long, rain-soaked pause, she sighed, brushing wet curls back. I'm too wiped to fight you tonight. Meet me tomorrow, roots and beans. We'll talk. She turned to go, then glanced back. And ditch the soggy bag. It's pathetic. Owen watched her vanish into the night, a flicker of hope sparking in his chest. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a crack in the wall. Back at Peak Pulse, Jasper was probably losing his mind, the board demanding answers. Here, though, Owen had a shot at something real. He just had to figure out how to grab it. Can a rain-drenched sorry fix a busted trust? Hit subscribe to find out if Owen and Kaya patch this up. Would you give him a second shot? Tell me in the comments. I'm all ears. The humidity in Atlanta hadn't let up by late August, and neither had the mess Owen Brooks had stumbled into. After that rain-soaked showdown outside the clinic, he'd been clinging to the thin thread Kaya had thrown him. Meet me tomorrow. We'll talk. Roots and Beans was buzzing when he got there the next day, the air thick with coffee and tension. The usual hum of chatter was laced with whispers, heads swiveling as he walked in, baristas scrolling phones under the counter, an old guy in the corner muttering, "That's him, huh? The billionaire?" The scoop had done its damage, turning their quiet corner into a damn circus. Owen slid into their spot, hoodie damp with sweat, stomach churning like he'd downed bad gas station sushi. Up at Peak Pulse HQ in Buckhead, things were a dumpster fire. Jasper had called an emergency meeting that morning, his voice crackling through Owen's phone on speaker. "Man, Horizon Capital's out. 12 mil. Gone," he'd said, panic creeping into his usual cool. "They're spooked. You're MIA. Board's floating a new CEO if you don't get your ass back soon." Owen had barely grunted a reply, too locked on Kaya to care about stock slides or corporate coups. Jasper sighed. "I get it. She's dope. But you're tanking us over fries and feelings. Wake up." Owen hadn't woken up. He'd hung up, grabbed a coffee, black, no sugar, her kind, and hauled ass to West End. Peak Pulse could wait. This couldn't. Kaya showed up 15 minutes late. Scrubs rumpled from a brutal night shift, dark circles shadowing her eyes. She didn't sit, just stood there, arms crossed, fingers tapping a restless beat on her elbow. "You're here," she said, voice flat as asphalt. "Should have figured." "Told you I would be," Owen said, sliding the extra coffee her way. "Kaya, Cut it," she snapped, sharp enough to make him flinch. "Saw the news again this morning. Tech mogul's nurse. Gold digger or good Samaritan?" Nia won't shut up about it. "You too good for us now, huh?" Her voice cracked, and she looked away, jaw tight. "I didn't sign up for this crap, Owen." He stood, hands out like he could grab the mess and fix it. "I know, and I'm sorry. I've got PR scrubbing the photos, threatening lawsuits. I didn't want this either." She laughed, bitter and hollow, like he told a bad joke. "Oh, you didn't want this? Poor you, stuck with your fancy lawyers and your penthouse sob story. Meanwhile, Mama's got reporters sniffing around her porch. Tasha's freaking out 'cause some blog posted her Insta pics, calling her the billionaire's sidekick. This isn't just your mess. It's mine now." Owen's chest tightened, guilt clawing at him. "I'll fix it, Kaya. I'll talk to your mom, get security." "Security?" Her eyes blazed, and she stepped closer, voice low and furious. "You think throwing cash at this makes it disappear? That's your problem, Owen. You think everything's a deal you can close. I'm not some investor you can pay off." "That's not what I meant," he shot back, louder than he'd planned. Heads turned, but he didn't care. I'm trying to protect you. Protect me, she cut in, voice rising. You lied to me. Sat here eating my fries, doodling app crap, acting like some regular dude, and the whole time you're this tech lord with a private jet. How's that protecting me? I didn't want you to see the jet, he yelled, frustration boiling over. I wanted you to see me, the guy who'd rather code in a basement than sip champagne with assholes. You think I love this shit? The fake smiles, the leeches, the cameras. I hid it 'cause with you, I didn't have to be Owen Brooks, billionaire dickhead. I could just be Owen. Kaya's face softened for a split second, then snapped shut again. And I could just be Kaya. But now I'm the nurse who snagged a billionaire. You don't get how this flips everything. Before he could answer, her phone buzzed, loud and insistent. She glanced at it, cursed under her breath, and turned to go. Clinic emergency. We're not done, but I can't deal with this now. Kaya, wait. He started, but she was already out the door, leaving wet sneaker prints and a cold coffee behind. Owen sank back into the chair, the whispers around him buzzing like gnats. He'd blown it. Again. Hours later, fate, or dumb luck, threw them together again. Owen was still in West End, wandering the streets like a lost dog, when a clinic nurse grabbed him. You, Owen? Kaya said you're some tech hotshot. We need you now. A kid, maybe 8, had crashed at the clinic, a rare asthma flare-up, and their monitor was down. Kaya was in there, barking orders, hands steady despite the chaos. Owen didn't think twice. He called Jasper, pulling every peak pulse string to rush a portable monitor from their warehouse to West End in under an hour. He stood outside, rain-soaked and useless, until the gear arrived, sleek, beeping, a lifeline. When Kaya stepped out, scrubbed sweaty, the kid stable, she looked at him, really looked, for the first time that day. You did that? She asked, voice hoarse. Yeah, he said, shoving wet hair back. Least I could do. She nodded, slow, like she was weighing it. He's gonna pull through. Thanks. A beat, then quieter. Doesn't fix us, though. I know, he said, throat tight, but I'm not quitting. She didn't reply, just headed for the alley out back. Owen followed, rain hammering down, turning the gravel into a swamp. She stopped by a busted picnic table, the spot where they'd once sketched app ideas on a napkin, and spun to face him, curls plastered to her face. Our worlds don't mesh, Owen, she said, voice breaking. You're boardrooms and billions. I'm night shifts and food stamps. This, she waved between them, it's a dream. Then I'll ditch my world, he shouted over the storm, stepping closer, water streaming off his hoodie. I'll quit Peak Pulse, sell the penthouse, whatever it takes. I don't care about the money. I care about you. She stared at him, rain mixing with tears she wouldn't own. You don't get it. I don't want you to quit. I want you to be real with me, all of it. But this? She gestured to the chaos, her soaked scrubs, his dripping clothes, the clinic glowing behind them. It's too damn much. I can't live like this. Kaya, he started reaching out, but she shook her head, stepping back. I need space, she said, firm despite the tremble. Don't follow me this time. She turned and walked off, disappearing into the rain, leaving Owen alone by the table. He sank onto it, the wood creaking under him, soaked to the bone, her words crushing him. She was right. Their worlds didn't fit. Not yet. But he wasn't ready to let go. Not after they'd just saved a kid together. Not when he could still feel the spark of that napkin night. Back at Peak Pulse, the board was probably drafting his exit papers. In West End, Kaya was dodging whispers and holding her life together. Here, in this muddy alley, Owen was stuck, caught between who he'd been and who he wanted to be. It felt hopeless, like the rain would never stop. But sometimes, when it all falls apart, That's when you spot the pieces worth saving. He just had to figure out how to pick them up. When it all crashes down, what's left to hold on to? Hit subscribe to see if Owen and Kaya can bridge this gap. Think they're done for good? Drop your take in the comments. I'm listening. The heat didn't break in Atlanta that August, and neither did the mess Owen Brooks had made. After that blowout in the clinic alley, he'd gone dark. Too dark. No more roots and beans stakeouts. No more soggy apologies. He threw himself back into peak pulse, pulling 20-hour days in a glass office that felt like a prison cell. The board eased up when Horizon Capital circled back, stock steadied, and the headlines faded to a low hum. Tech King reclaims throne. But Owen wasn't reclaiming anything. He was running on fumes, crashing at his desk in a hoodie that still smelled faintly of clinic antiseptic, chasing a fix for a problem no algorithm could crack. Kaya was gone, and no amount of code could fill the void. Kaya Mwangi wasn't much better off. She doubled down on night shifts at the clinic, steering clear of roots and beans like it was cursed. The whispers had quieted, Nia's snark fading to shrugs, but the sting stuck around. She buried herself in work, hands steady on patients, voice calm in the storm. But at home, she'd slump on the couch, staring at nothing while Esther's gumbo simmered in the background. Tasha kept nudging. "Sis, call him. He's a wreck without you." But Kaya shook her head. "He's not my mess to clean up," she'd say, though her tapping fingers gave her away. She missed him, the Owen who'd laughed at her burnt ugali, who'd sketched dreams with her on a soggy napkin. Trust, though? That was a tougher rebuild than a busted lung. The turning point hit on a sticky Wednesday, gray and heavy like the whole damn month. Owen was back at the clinic, not for Kaya, but for a checkup, his doc insisting he'd pushed too hard again. He was in the hallway, messing with a beat-up silver lighter his mom had given him back in Decatur, the only thing he'd kept from the basement days, when he heard a familiar gravelly laugh. Mr. Reggie, the old mechanic Kaya adored, rolled by in his wheelchair, a Jell-O cup wobbling in his lap. "Well, if it ain't the tech kid," he rasped, grinning. "Thought you'd bailed." Owen forced a smile, pocketing the lighter. "Hey, Reggie. Just passing through. How's Kaya holding up?" Reggie's eyes twinkled, sharp as ever. "She's a champ, that girl. Rough week, though. Kid nearly didn't make it last night. She's out back catching her breath. You should swing by." Owen hesitated, the alley fight flashing like a neon warning. "She doesn't want to see me." Reggie snorted, wheeling closer. "Bullshit. She talks about you. Won't say it, but I hear stuff. Been watching you two since you showed up at Roots, all twitchy and rich. Knew who you were day one, kept it zipped 'cause I figured you'd spill when you were ready." He leaned in, voice dropping. "Lost a woman once. Lied about something stupid. Thought I was sparing her. Took me 20 years to figure out trust beats pride every damn time. Don't wait that long, son." Owen stared, Reggie's words hitting like a punch. He knew? All along? It sank in heavy. Someone had seen through his mask and still had his back. Maybe Kaya could too, if he stopped running. "Thanks, Reggie," he said, voice thick. "You're a sneaky old bastard, huh?" "Damn straight," Reggie chuckled, rolling off with his Jell-O. "Go get her, hotshot." Owen found her out back, sitting on that busted picnic table, scrubs damp from the drizzle. Her curls were loose, sticking to her face, and she didn't look up when he stepped out. "Kaya," he said soft, testing the waters. She tensed, fingers tapping her knee. "Owen, what are you doing here?" "Check up," he said, then moved closer, rain pattering on his hoodie. "And you. I came for you." She didn't budge, so he kept going, words tumbling out. "I've been a wreck without you. Not the company, Not the headlines, just us. The fries, the laughs, that dumb napkin sketch. I was scared to be real because everyone I've let in just saw dollar signs. But you didn't, and I still fucked it up. Kaya finally looked up, eyes guarded but listening. You hurt me, Owen. Not the money, the lie. I thought we were on the same level. We were, he said, dropping to his knees in the mud so they were eye to eye, rain soaking his jeans. We are. I'm done hiding. No half-truths. I'll quit Peak Pulse if that's what it takes. Give it all up. I just want you. She shook her head, a faint smile breaking through. Don't quit, you dumbass. You love that company. Just be you, all of you. Can you do that? He nodded, heart hammering. Yeah. All of me. Messy, broke-ass coder me. And you're my world, Kaya. Not the penthouse, not the jet. You. She stared at him, rain streaking her face, then reached out, brushing his wet hair back. You're still a jerk for lying, she said, voice softening. But I miss you too. Let's try this. For real. No more secrets. Owen grinned, relief flooding him, and pulled her into a soggy hug. She laughed, that laugh that started it all, and slugged his arm. You owe me coffee. Good stuff this time. Deal, he said, holding her tight as the rain washed the last of the tension away. 2 years later, Decatur, Georgia. The wedding was a glorious mess. They'd picked a barn just outside Decatur, near Owen's old basement roots. Fairy lights strung up and a wild crowd spilling across the grass. Kaya's West End crew brought the soul, Esther dishing gumbo into bowls, Tasha leading a second-line dance with cousins waving napkins and hollering. Owen's Buckhead squad rolled in stiff and overdressed, fumbling the electric slide while Jasper spun Esther around, grinning like a fool. The menu was gumbo and caviar, a clash that somehow clicked. Kaya rocked a white dress that hugged her curves, but halfway through, she swapped it for scrubs when a clinic call came in. Baby on the way. Owen just laughed, kissing her goodbye. That's my girl. They'd built something solid in 2 years. Owen stepped back as CEO, handing the reins to Jasper but sticking around to innovate. More hoodies, less suits. Kaya kept her shifts, now running the clinic's emergency wing, and together they launched HealthBridge into a non-profit powerhouse, blending his tech with her heart to hit West End's roughest corners. The media still sniffed. Tech Titan ties the knot. But they didn't care. Home was a cozy spot near the clinic, not the penthouse he'd sold, where Kaya made him watch Love and Hip Hop while he tried explaining AI over her still-burnt ugali. Last week they'd hit Roots and Beans again. Owen with a weak coffee, Kaya in scrubs, smirking, still trash. A kid, a nursing student shadowing at the clinic, stopped them, eyes wide. You're the HealthBridge folks, right? Your story got me here. Tech and care together, it's fire. Owen handed her his mom's old lighter. Kaya tossed her a notebook. Don't hide who you are, kid, she said, and they walked off, her hand in his, laughing like it was day one. Love, they'd figured out, wasn't about matching bank accounts or worlds. It was about matching souls, raw, messy, true. Owen had lost everything he thought he needed to find what he wanted, and Kaya had shown him the way. Sometimes it starts with a rain-soaked pitch and a laugh in a storm. Sometimes that's enough. If this hit you in the feels, smash subscribe for more real stories like Owen and Kaya's. Drop a love in the comments if you believe in fate. I want to see it.